Hey, what's up? I'm Guy. That's John.
Hey,
It's our YouTube channel.
check out the podcast below in the description as
Oh,
well.
yeah. And subscribe to this channel. Give this video a like. So, Mike Sando, who we love, quarterback tier. Mike Sando, quarterback tier guy, among other things, wrote an article about potential destinations for Matt Stafford, and he had the Niners. I don't know if he had it on the top of the list because it was the best match, but he had the Niners at the top of the list as a Matt Stafford destination. What do you think? Ever since he wrote the article, I've had people DMing me about it, asking. I had a couple people ask Stafford or Darnold. It's interesting that they kind of get thrown in together. One's younger, less accomplished for sure, but
way cheaper.
Way cheaper, but way less good, at least historically. Potential, maybe.
I think if you just put it in a vacuum and don't factor in the money you have to pay them, what you have to pay to trade for them, because it's a double whammy, right? You have Stafford's going to be more expensive in terms of draft capital to get him. He is going to be dramatically more impressive, even if he facilitates and takes a pay cut on your books. So it's a very, very expensive endeavor to acquire Matt Stafford.
At this point, he's $35 million cap number in 2021 and $24 million dead cap.
Matt Stafford is dramatically better in 2021 than Sam Darnold. It ain't close. So I would rather have Matt Stafford. Now, if I do think that Sam Darnold would be good in this scheme, and his number next year is like a little under $5 million. You would have to pick up his fifth-year option, which would then be expensive in the fifth year, right? Because he was a top 5 pick. It's the fifth-year options for top 10 picks are a lot more expensive than guys like 11 through 32. So it'd be a very expensive number. It could get expensive fast. I do think you could acquire him for much cheaper. Like, could you get Sam Darnold for a 3 and a 2 or something? Could you get Matt Stafford for 2 2s or something like that? Because I would think about that. If I'm the Niners and I end up with pick 18, 19, it gets a little complicated. You know, it is risky, right? It is. He's been injured before. If you told me Matt Stafford had been the quarterback of the 49ers all season this year, even with their injuries, they're 5-6 now. I'd say they're 7-5 worst case, maybe 8-3. I mean, he's that good.
Yeah. I would not.
He's that talented, and I think with Kyle, they could be special.
I think what makes it promising is you go, look at what a mess his career has been just from an organizational standpoint, right? They've won double-digit games twice in his entire career, or his record is he's won double-digit games twice in his entire career. And for as banged up as he is, he did play for 8 straight years, started every game. Doesn't feel like that.
Toughness is not a question with him.
I don't think there's any question. If you told me that this guy had played basically, 10, 11 years for Kyle Shanahan, he would have not 2 10-win seasons, but
I think it's the argument always in
minimum.
In Sando's tier article, everyone writes, like, can you imagine if Sean Payton, if Kyle Shanahan, if Andy Reid, if Josh McDaniels had drafted this guy? I mean, think about this. The franchise that acquired him, and he's made a shitload of money. I think he's going to go down as one of the richest players ever. Like, it's been very fruitful to his bank account. But from a football standpoint, the 2 best players in the history of the franchise have both retired at 30. Both said, I'm fucking out. They quit, guy. I mean, it'd be one thing if it was just Barry Sanders. Calvin Johnson did the same. They said, I quit. And not like Patrick Willis, like my foot really hurts. I mean, Calvin Johnson was banged up, but it felt like I can't do the Lions anymore.
Yep. You're saying it might be the setup for him to pay to leave, give some back in some way to reduce the to reduce the financial burden. But again,
because he has so much money, wouldn't you think he's a little tired of losing?
You would think, and I think his wife wants out. Although I don't know that California's the place for her. Bay Area, here we come. But I would part of the equation here to me is where are you drafting, and do you like any of the quarterbacks in this draft? Are you drafting 13 or 14 and you like Zach Wilson and think you can move up and get him? Because that would be my number one option if I'm the 49ers.
Because it's immediately way cheaper and you have him under cost control contract for a long time.
Yeah, and he's just younger. I mean, Stafford's not old by quarterback standards in 2020 at 32. He'll be 33 in February. But
well, to me, a big question mark's going to be, Does Roethlisberger, how their season plays out, does he return? And I would say he's going to be their quarterback next year. If he's their quarterback, they're not in the Matt Stafford camp. They could still trade for Sam Darnold and go, shit, we'll just pay him $5 million, basically be our backup, and he'll be the quarterback the next year. It'd be a little bit risky, but it's like if Roethlisberger's going to stay. To
Colts
me,
could do the same thing.
Indy could do both. Rivers is on a 1-year deal, though, so would they re-sign him? Could they just go Darnold and Jacoby, which they probably could?
You know, Sando wrote that somebody told him they thought Frank was too loyal to Rivers to do that, but I don't see how. I mean, if you're trying to really win, how could you run back?
Well,
with
here's what I tell Sando. Frank ain't the boss of the roster. Ballard is. And it's pretty clear Ballard's built a juggernaut. So he gave in to Frank, got him Rivers, which not even a crazy move.
They needed somebody.
Yes, they had to do it. I think they are kind of a wild card because immediately you could be like, well, if they lost in the first round of the playoffs and their pick's 21, what if they just offered like their first round pick this year and their second round pick next year or something for Matt Stafford? Like, I don't know if the Niners can beat that unless would the Niners trade pick 18 for him? Would you trade pick 18 for Stafford?
Yeah, I probably would, John.
I would too.
Because I would go, yeah, you got a legitimate starting NFL quarterback who can throw the ball down the field. So
who's 33 that you think you could get, the way the game's played now, 5 years out of him?
Part of this, too, is like you have Kyle Shanahan, right? If you don't have Kyle Shanahan, it makes it – if you don't have a coach like – if you don't have McVay, if you don't have Frank Reich, if you don't have that guy –
Are they getting a first-round pick lock for Matt Stafford? Because it does kind of feel like they probably would.
Yeah, probably. Because everyone will just make the case that we just made, which is, well, yeah, I mean, he's not, you don't think what he once was, but if you got a good offensive coach, can't you get him back pretty close to being a top half NFL quarterback? Right?
Yeah.
Guy that can win you games. Now, he needs help. But now, here's the other thing. Is Ballard going to trade his first-round pick in back-to-back years?
I mean, they're just ready-made to win. I think you'd think about it.
Because he likes seconds.
I think he'd probably rather do a trade for like Sam Darnold with less draft capital. Who knows? To me, it just depends how it looks.
There's a question. Would you?
I think the Colts, the Niners, it's clear. Like they got a quarterback issue. I think with the Colts and the Steelers, like they are on the playoff path. So like, what does it look like with the playoffs? The Niners, regardless, even if Jimmy were to come back, it's like they got issues. Those teams. Definitely the Steelers. Like Roethlisberger's going to come back. The Colts. I mean, Rivers could just retire, go coach football.
I don't think they can try it. I mean, they're really good.
You think Rivers plays? You think Rivers in the NFL in 2021?
I don't think he can be on the Colts. But he might just love playing enough.
He does make $25 million. Would anyone? He gonna have to take a pay cut.
Yeah, but as we like to say, it's hard to find a job that pays 15.
Well, I got news for you. They don't exist.
We got kids to feed.
Yeah, he has 9 of them.
But he may not need it. I just don't think if you're the Colts, you can run it back like that again next year. Do you?
No. I do think Sam Darnold, who clearly, if you like him, you're still holding out to hope to what he was 3 years ago coming out. We have now years of evidence. I got 2 negatives on him. One, he's been hurt a lot. I mean, he's legitimately just had multiple different injuries, which I think is just disturbing. The number one thing that gives anxiety in the business of player acquisition is durability. Like when you're because you're arguing over this thing that you don't quite know, but it's an issue. So I think that's a question. He throws a lot of picks, and he did at USC. He had a little Jameis to him where it's like, well, I'll just coach it out of him. And I think Jameis will just coach it out of him. We'll still coach it out of him. It's kind of clear that sometimes you just don't coach it out of him.
And part of the success at SC was he just had really talented receivers to just throw it up to, right?
I think one thing's clear. You can coach and improve now. Like the evidence is in, you can make guys more accurate in just the way the game's played now. I think you can improve accuracy easier than ever before because the game's not as physical.
You mean with play calling?
Yeah, with play calling, just with getting guys open. It has a little collegiate feel to the NFL, even though it's way harder. But it's not like you hear Joe Montana and Steve Young talk. It's like, God, I had LT coming at me. Jerry hasn't even out of his break. Like you constantly were throwing guys open. I see a lot of the NFL now where it's like, are you throwing him open or is the guy kind of just open? The pick plays and the league is just different. And I'm not diminishing how good you have to be to play NFL quarterback, but I think you can improve accuracy. I do think decision making with guys, it's just kind of innately like, I can do this. I can do this.
How fast do you process? Yeah.
And I'd say Kyle does not like that thought process. He wants a guy to not even think like that. And I think that's why he butted heads with Jimmy and why he has like a hard on for Kirk. Because even though Kirk, I think sometimes when you watch him, you go, I think he kind of believes a little in himself a little more than Kyle once did.
You probably need some of that.
Yeah, so Darnold, to me, because he's physically gifted, a lot like Josh Allen, but not quite as physically gifted as that. When I watch him play, I go, God, this guy kind of thinks he's a little gunslinger.
Now, here's the thing that makes it hard, though, is I watch his team.
Because Stafford is a gunslinger, but he throws a 100-mile-an-hour fastball.
Right. Yeah. Darnold does not have that arm.
No.
Even close. But I also, it's hard to know because I watch him and his team's terrible. So, of course, he's got to try and make plays. Right? Of course, he's got to try and do crazy shit. Like, his team is awful. Was it against the Niners at the end? He made that crazy play to Berrios in the end zone. I mean, he's made some plays. You go, whoa.
I think that was Minnesota.
Okay, he's made a couple running around.
He's had some incredible. The guy is an incredible talent.
So, my preference would be that you just take a first-round quarterback in 2021, but it doesn't always. It's hard to do because these guys just aren't a lot of them. They get drafted really high. You're not going to be bad enough to just have one fall in your lap.
Yes.
So, it's a fun one, though.